I see midlife when people start to feel frustrated at the, I don't know what I'm here to do. I get excited for them because this is the portal through which we get to transform and create lives that are incredibly meaningful.
Welcome to the latest episode of Thriving in Menopause, brought to you by Prevention Magazine. My name is Zoe Mernier and I'm the editor of Prevention, and thrilled to be here today where we're going to really focus on the thriving part of our podcast title. Now, in this episode, we're going to be exploring how this phase of our lives can actually be incredibly empowering and transformative, and how with a bit of direction and understanding, we can really start looking at these years as some of the best of our lives. But how, I hear you cry? To help us find out, we're joined today by Dr. Gemma Munro, an award-winning speaker and writer who has a PhD in performance and psychology and specialises in the science and art of courage and change. Gemma, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Zoe.
Now, I'm sure there are a lot of women out there going, well, steady on there. I'm just trying to survive from day to day here as I navigate brain fog, anxiety and hot flushes. What do you mean these are the best years of my life? But can you explain a bit about how midlife can be such a powerful time for us?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. What I see a lot, and in fact, I'll go to Carl Jung. So Carl Jung, obviously a psychologist from a number of decades ago, talks about the fact that the first 40 years of our lives is outwardly focused. And then at 40-ish onwards, we get to focus inside. And I see so many people as a coach and as a speaker, I see so many women go through their 30s, ticking off their to-do list, getting stuff done, and they reach close to 40 or in their 40s or close to 50, and they suddenly go, oh my gosh, I've lost my mojo. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm not motivated anymore. What's going on? And so I totally get, Zoe, why on the surface people be going, well, this just feels awful. I do not like it. But what I find, though, is that if people can really lean into that uncertainty, into that opportunity to have a second adventure, a second life, they start to ask themselves questions like, well, what if I'm meant to do something different? What if I'm here to live a slightly bigger or bolder or quieter or softer life? And to do that, they start tuning into the small, still voice within them, perhaps for the first time ever. Instead of tuning into all the external voices that have told them to look a certain way, to do things a certain way, they start caring far less about that and start tuning into this voice. And in that small, still voice within, there is gold. There is information about who we are, why we're here, what we're here to do. And that's why I see midlife, when people start to feel frustrated at the, I don't know what I'm here to do. I get excited for them because this is the portal through which we get to transform and create lives that are incredibly meaningful.
Okay, so for those of us whose maybe knob is still dialed down a bit, how do we access this small, still voice within?
Yeah, we live in a society that teaches us to listen to one side of the brain only, which is the left side of the brain. And the left side of the brain is built, and it does a wonderful job at it, and it's really useful for slicing and dicing data, but it is built to look at what can go wrong. It's built to find reasons to say no. It's built to keep us safe. And in being trained to listen to this left side of the brain, we have been taught to make decisions that keep us on the straight and narrow. And we've been taught to think in quite a manic way. So I'm sure, Zoe, in fact, everyone I work with has a nasty voice in their head that says things to them like, what are you thinking? That's going to completely fail. What are they going to think of you? You're going to look like an idiot. That voice is from this left side of the brain that is designed to keep you safe and small and hidden. So when we start to learn to access the small, still voice, which is essentially the voice that speaks to you when we are in a whole-brained state, we need to quieten that left brain and move into a whole brain state, which we can do in a variety of ways. We can do by finding pockets of space in our days where we stop scrolling our phone, we stop scrolling social media, we stop checking the to-do list. We just sit, we find time in nature, we meditate, we go for a walk, we do something creative, and we can just take some deep breaths and soften our gaze. 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those things can be all that we need to access that soft space, that whole brain state. And from then, we start to get intuitive messages coming from our right brains that lead us towards the right path.
Interesting. And if that doesn't happen, is there any way we can force it?
Bless you, Zoe. This is what we do, correct? Society says it's not happening for me, so I've got to push. This is the left brain. Yes, oh my gosh, yes. The left brain likes to catastrophize and push and hustle. And we're rewarded for it in our early stages of life. In our schooling, in our 20s, we are rewarded for that hustle and push. But for those listening, I think many of them would go, you get to midlife and go, oh, I just can't be bothered with that anymore. That I'm done. I need a new way of working, a new way of being. So for me, there are multiple tips to access it. But one other I would suggest is music that makes you feel peaceful. Have you got that, Zoe? Have you got some pieces of music that you listen to and your whole body goes,
Absolutely. I find all those ones that you hear when you're having a massage always seem to have a good effect on you.
Yeah, and I find that choosing one of those tips, whether it's music, nature. I know a lot of people will be walking around in that manic part of the brain, feeling like they need to hustle and push, and they'll walk around a corner and see a sunset or sunrise, and again the whole body goes.
Yeah.
So anything that can get you to that place is helpful. The trick then is to allow the discomfort of being in stillness.
Absolutely.
Because we're not taught how to do it. And then once you're in stillness, you start to listen to those messages that come through, which give you guidance in terms of what comes next for you. So it happened to me, it would be about almost 6 years ago now, where I woke up and I'd been divorced a year and a half or so ago. And I woke up and I was feeling very still and very quiet. And this voice said to me, get to Patch. Now, for those who are in the Adelaide Hills, they will realise that Patch is a restaurant in the Adelaide Hills, for those who know the Adelaide Hills. And, of course, my left brain, my manic brain just went, well, I can't do that. The kids are coming back and I've got laundry to do and all that. But I'd had practice listening to the small voice, that little quiet voice of intuition. So I went, okay, fine, I have to go. Went there. Behind the counter was this beautiful twinkle-eyed man. I emailed him afterwards, not knowing it was him, just emailed the restaurant because I ate the most wonderful salad of my life. And now that man, I'm marrying him in a few months' time.
Oh, my goodness.
So when we give ourselves permission to feel that stillness, rather than pushing, rather than always going, feel the stillness, listen to that voice, it gives us operating instructions for a second adventure, a second life, a second love, which leads us to so much more meaning and peace and joy.
So I guess with that whole intuition thing, it's like it's not suddenly going to tell you this. As you say, it's listening out for whatever it might be, and it's not always, this is your next career path, Zoe. It could be as simple as go to the coffee shop. You know what I mean? Because I think that's the thing. We're expecting to be sort of hit with a bolt of lightning as to where we're going or whatever. But it's just listening to smaller messages that in a roundabout way might lead you to that right place, right?
They whisper you to that right place. And yes, every now and then there may be a bolt of lightning, but I think one of the things I give keynotes on and run programs on is how to find your purpose. And I think there is a myth that holds us back that says that your purpose is going to land fully gift wrapped, with a 12-point business plan and a 5-year guarantee that the mortgage will be paid. And we will know exactly what it looks like, and therefore it's safe. And then we will act on it. When in reality, the way we find our purpose is by listening to those small whispers. But before that comes the task of learning to get into a place where we are open to and then acting on, having the courage to act on those whispers.
We'll be right back after this.
Perimenopause can actually start in your 40s. Declining estrogen production during perimenopause brings on changes to menstrual cycles and often the onset of hot flushes, night sweats, mood swings, and sexual problems. Premensal Peri is specifically designed for perimenopausal women and can help relieve these common menopausal symptoms. Premensal Peri is available at leading pharmacies across Australia and offers a cost-effective treatment at under $1 a day. When things start to change, try Premensal Peri. Always read the label and follow the directions for use.
Okay, we're back. Indeed. Now, I mean, you've said you see midlife as a time when we can shed those aspects of kind of pleasing and performing, that kind of thing. But again, some people might be saying, look, the demands on me at this time of my life are greater than ever, you know, be it I'm currently in a demanding career, or I have aging parents, or my kids, you know, whatever. When you are bogged down in the sort of minutiae of life, is there sort of any advice you can give for making your way out of the wilderness?
Yeah. And I hear that. I have been there. I work with a lot of people who are in that place. I think, again, there is this expectation that women in particular will take all the balls thrown at them and keep them in the air. And I would say very clearly that we're not here to juggle all the balls. It's actually impossible. We cannot do it all. There's this myth that we can. I think we're here to choose the balls that don't talk about balls too much. But we're here to choose the balls that actually feel good and right to us. We're taking this analogy way too far. We might move away.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we don't occasionally have challenges that come into our life that we have to go, okay, this is not how I choose to spend my time. I'm going to do this with as much grace as I can muster. Life is life. I'm not saying everything becomes bliss and roses.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that we have more permission than we think to take, excuse me for going back to the ball analogy, but to take some of the balls that actually don't feel like ours to juggle anymore and either let them go or take the foot off the pedal a little bit, not do them quite so well. There is this expectation that women will do everything well. And if you look at the people you admire the most, my bet is they do multiple things incredibly badly or not at all.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time I see women trying to veneer themselves off, perfect themselves, beige themselves off so that they have no edges. But what I would say is it's actually your edges that are going to give you a life that feels meaningful to you, and your edges are what others love most about you. It isn't your ability to do everything and to do it perfectly.
For sure. Okay, well, let's talk about it in relation to, you know, career or work. I have a lot of friends at this age who are, you know, maybe they've lost a job or they're looking for work, or they're finding their skills are no longer relevant, or they're getting overlooked for work, or they are just thinking, you know, maybe this is time for a whole new direction for me. I mean, how do we get the courage to pivot and change from a career perspective in midlife?
It's very hard. So I don't want to underemphasize that. I see a lot of people, particularly when they get to midlife, they have this realization that they have spent their 20s and 30s running around being tapped on other people's, or beg your pardon, following other people's taps on the shoulder for them.
Yeah.
And they've climbed a ladder and they've got kind of relatively far up that ladder. And then they go, well, this isn't my ladder. I should be doing something else. And the thought of leaving that ladder at that salary level, when you've got aging parents and kids, etc., it's really, really hard. What I would say to them is that, and it does get a little bit morbid, but I think there is joy in looking at what's coming for all of us. There's this palliative care nurse called Bronnie Ware. Her job was literally to look after people in their last days on earth. And from that experience, she wrote a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And she said that the number one regret of the dying is not living a life that is true to them, of filling other people's expectations, of chasing other people's plans for them. So to me, it's never too late to start making decisions that actually feel like yours, that help you to blaze your own trail rather than follow the path laid out by many people before you, even if you're making tiny little pivots. And so for those who are going, this isn't right for me, but I'm feeling too scared to kind of put everything down and make a leap, I'd just be asking you, what small pivots or tweaks can you make to feel like you can be more of yourself in your work? I find as you let go of the expectations of perfection, of doing everything perfectly, and start being more of who you actually are, the space opens up to go, maybe I can also make this decision. Maybe I can do this. So I would play with it. The other thing I would suggest is, for a moment, speaking of play, put down all the doubts, all the fears you have in terms of, how am I going to meet the mortgage? What will people think of me? Forget that for a minute and just play with the question, what if I could design my life and my career in a way that I would get to Monday and go, woo, I get to work today. What would that look like? Then what if I could be paid the exact amount I need to be paid for? What if that was possible? You start to get curious, and then if you can start taking little incremental steps towards that playful vision, I've seen so many times where that actually then happens almost of its own accord just by taking the first few steps.
Amazing. Because yes, I think that's, a lot of us need to sort of see the whole big picture before we can make any action. So I think that's great advice, to just start a little at a time.
What I would say is that the universe does reward momentum. So you take a little step and you're rewarded for that courage, but also you get data in. It's like, actually that felt good to me, but that felt less good. So I think it's Martha Beck says to play the game of warmer, colder. Did you ever play that game when you were a child?
Yep.
Getting warmer,
yeah.
getting warmer. Just make a little step towards what makes you feel just a little bit warmer, and then take another one. And often in taking little tiny steps, the next will appear straight after, and then the path unfolds in front of you. Yeah.
And any advice for people who are just, I guess, suffering a bit of a crisis of confidence? I mean, especially, going through menopause, perhaps we're not feeling our best, or we're feeling we're not looking our best, we're exhausted, we have physical symptoms as well. And so just the thought of, I guess, just getting a bit of confidence back into our lives.
Yeah, I would, I'd say a couple of things on that. One is that we have these brains that are, or 50% of our brains, that are designed to protect us by keeping us safe and small and hidden. And to do that, they get very good at feeding us complete porcupines, complete lies like, you're not thin enough, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you've got nothing of value to add, you don't deserve A, B, and C. And I think one of the biggest things we can do, particularly in midlife, because I actually think we're called to do it, because we have fewer fruitcakes to give, we get sick of this voice. We're done with it. We are done with imposter syndrome. It's been with us for such a long time. So one of the skills we can master is how to quieten that voice that keeps us downtrodden and realize it's not us. It's just a tiny part of our brain that's trying to do its job, and we don't need to listen to it anymore. The second thing I see is that we forget to play as grown-ups, and it is understandable because many of us have kids and dinner to get on the table and work to do, and then, oh gosh, I've got to get back to emails. But I see so many people on this hamster wheel of get up, caffeinate, look at the to-do list, back-to-back meetings, get home, feel exhausted, Netflix, wine, etc., over and over again. And we forget the joy of doing new things. We forget the joy of playing. We forget the joy of trying a swing dancing class, or just going away for a night with a friend or two, or trying a new board game. It can be super simple. It can be taking 5 minutes to go and feel the grass under your toes instead of answering yet another email. So I would suggest breaking the cycle of hamster wheel actions and doing the same thing over and over with something simple that you perhaps have always wanted to do, or just have an inkling that would light you up. We went away with our mates. It was literally a 24-hour camping trip. And I swear it gave me energy for weeks on end because the cycle was broken. So break the cycle and play. The power of connection and conversation that women have at this time, I do think at this point in history, it sets us apart from men. And of course, I'm generalizing, but I think we are taught the tools to go deep with our friends, to hold each other to account, to lift each other up, to be the best versions of ourselves. And I know I've got a podcast called The Oyster Sisters with Taryn Brumford and Mia Hanshin. And that's one of the things that we have done for each other, and we're hoping to do with women and for women around the world. It is all about how can we build this safe place in which women can rise through that power and connection of friendship. And I think the other thing I would therefore say when it comes to finding that spark again is connecting with your friends and actually making that a priority. It's such an energy giver, and we get so caught up in the day-to-day that we forget to do it.
We so do. We so do. And well, Dr. Gemma Munro, unfortunately that's all we have time for today, but thank you so much for joining us. That was amazing advice.
Thank you, Zoe, very much for having me.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us too. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And for more great tips about living your best life at midlife, make sure you pick up a copy of Prevention Magazine. I'm Zoe Mernier, and I'll see you next time.